This is the Exeter Impact Podcast, returning for its second series. From our Penryn campus in Cornwall and across the University of Exeter, our researchers are driving solutions that shape the world around us, and even far beyond it. In Series 2, we kick off with Making Waves, impactful solutions for our oceans, with Professor Tamara Galloway OBE and Professor Brendan Godley, and discover how local and national policy can protect life beneath the waves.
The last impact study that we worked on was all about reducing marine plastic pollution, and in particular a kind of plastic pollution called microplastics. And one of the reasons that they are of high concern is that they overlap with the prey item size of many, many different marine animals. So the first point of interest for us was in understanding that those microplastics might be taken up by marine animals, they might have different harmful effects, and they might enter the food chain. And this was something that we were really interested to be able to report on and to be able to bring that evidence to bear and maybe changing the way that things were done. So the impact study that we reported was reporting on some of the very first research worldwide to be able to do that, to be able to measure those microplastics. They've never been measured previously. So how on earth did you do that? How did you separate them out from all of the things that are around them, work out what they were and where they come from? How did you work out what harmful effects they were causing to these different marine organisms right at the base of the food web? And then how did you report that to government? So we were able to do that with those papers, and we were able to report those at a select committee. And that evidence was then used to support a ban on microbeads in cosmetics. That very direct link, when presented to a select committee, was a powerful way of showing that link between pollution and its environmental effects.
The work that we did in the Turks and Caicos Islands, the turtle fishermen, once they realised the scale of the fishery and the adults would have been impacted and that the turtles were coming from other countries, then were prepared to change the way that they did fishing. And then with their colleagues at the Marine Conservation Society, they basically worked up a series of legislative changes and found out what would actually fly with the turtle fishermen, and then those were enacted into law and then practice. So that's why we have to study turtles and plastics.
Absolutely.
To save the world.
I know, but to save the world, that's right.
Next, Professor Nathan Main takes us on a journey to the stars in episode 2, uncovering new frontiers of discovery among galaxies and exoplanets.
I'm glad you find the research exciting. I do too. I remember growing up, I didn't really know what a degree was, and I got a bit lucky. I think without those lucky interventions, I would never have even realised these opportunities were available. Our research, particularly with the exoplanets, it's exciting and it can bring people in. I basically want to understand the fundamental laws that give rise to all of this complexity. When I saw the opportunity to work on sort of planetary climates, other planets, and the opportunity to work with the Met Office, it really, really excited me because it gave me that opportunity to do what I loved, but also in some small way contribute back by sharing your passion for something and connecting with someone. You've opened a pathway for them and they've thought to themselves, oh, I like that, I could do that. My subject is complex, I admit that, and I have done it for many years and I still don't understand things and it's still hard, but it's also respecting that there are experts in all different fields. I think you have to recognise up front that working across sectors or research disciplines or anything out of your comfort zone is hard.
Yes.
And a lot of that is communication. So working with the visualization company, for example, they had expertise that, I couldn't hope to accrue on how you would visualize a planet at 3,000 degrees orbiting a star. Maybe I could do that in my head, but how do you communicate that to someone on a screen? I think impact as a researcher can feel quite lonely because it's a very important thing and you really want to contribute and do it, but it's something that perhaps many of us don't know how to do. So I think the best thing you can do is just to collaborate and ask. And some of those collaborations might come to nothing, but some of them could lead to something really special. the two things that are really important that I've learned is looking for opportunities for impact, not looking for impact. The data collection, that was really, really hard because a lot of it was retrospective. It was activity that I had done that wasn't necessarily planned for impact. As I said, it was something I was doing anyway. Do not forget the reason you're doing it. Not that you want to write an impact case, but the reason you want to have impact.
Then we explore impact and the future of work with Professor Harry Pitts and how we can prepare for it now.
As an impressionable, budding academic, was really interested in the work of Marx and Marxism as a way of understanding work in capitalist society, and that kind of anchored my interest that took me forward. I was on 0 hours contracts before it became a fashionable term, and I was always working alongside bits and pieces of study in those kind of precarious occupations. So I was really interested in understanding how that world of work had emerged out of the world of work that I grew up seeing as my reference point, which was a totally different type of world of work based upon kind of larger industrial employers and skilled trades. You can contribute your voice to a groundswell of other criticism and debate. It's not always as simple as bringing a piece of evidence to the table and that equaling impact. Sometimes it's about saying, don't go there and hoping others follow, or don't follow as the case may be. Whilst AI might not result in workers being expelled from industry or the jobs they're in, that the improvements that are possible through that to techniques and to processes won't be to the benefit of employees, because there is the power that's distributed across the economy for them to really feel participants in that process. There are the small wins which you really celebrate one at a time, and that gives you a really good feeling about your work, to know that those changes are there, and sometimes they're very subtle. If you're changing the way people talk about things and think about things, they're less likely to make the missteps that I've analysed in my academic work. They're less likely to take those paths that are better not taken. To see some things I've been writing about for a really long time actually being, the rubber hitting the road, really, in terms of actually having to write something that's really policy focused on thinking about the place I care the most about and what can benefit that, has been really rewarding. And I think, Cornwall's sense of where it's going and the contribution it can make to the future political economy of these islands as a whole, I want to be able to say that I've played a part in that narrative about where it's going. I've always been more keen on the impact with a small I, which could also be called influence in a way. It's that kind of public intellectual role, which a lot of academics don't always have the confidence all the time to be able to engage with, but actually is a very traditional idea about what we do as academics, is to be publicly engaged.
Yes.
But not in a way that everything is always driven by thinking, here's the impact I'm going to achieve. And it's important, I think, for academics to see that as a part of the portfolio activities that we do. I think a general kind of practical thing about seeking impact, let's say, you can only really achieve it if the world's ready to listen. So you have to adjust yourself instrumentally to the shift in priorities and where the conversation is at, and find a way into that conversation. The key thing for having a pathway to impact on the beginning of a project, I think, is to be responsive to what people outside academia find meaningful and useful. If you're interested in impact, I think it has to be that the ideas about what it is you're doing are themselves co-produced by, having a constant and warm relationship and conversation with people outside.
In episode 4, we dive into pioneering climate simulation with Professor Ivana Goodil, tackling the greatest challenge of our age. For our 5th episode, we reframe history with Professor Katrina Pennell, examining how conflict and memory continue to shape our world. And finally, Professor Lucy Woodall joins us to discuss driving biodiversity in the marine biome. This series brings you the voices of world-leading researchers across biosciences, ecology and conservation, history, politics, physics and astronomy, who are making real impact. Join host Emma Sherriff for Series 2 of the Exeter Impact Podcast.